Let's take a look at jobs and compensation. Pay varies significantly according to a job. Organizations design their pay structures around jobs and job levels. In many organizations, an employee's pay depends on both the nature of the job and the job level. Internal alignment refers to pay relationships among different competencies within an organization. Pay structure refers to the array of pay rates for different work or skills within an organization. The number of levels, the differentials in pay between the levels, and the criteria used to determine those differences describe the structure. Workflow refers to the processes by which goods and services are delivered to the customer. The pay structure ought to support the efficient flow of that work and the design of the organization. Internal pay structures are part of the network of returns. Pay increases for promotions, more challenging work, and greater responsibilities as employees move up in the structure. The challenge is to design structures that engage people to help achieve organization objectives. The structure ought to make it clear the relationship between each job and the organization's objectives. This is an example of line of sight. Employees should be able to see the links between their work, the work of others, and the organization's objectives. And the structure ought to be fair to all employees. One feature of any pay structure is its hierarchical nature, the numbers of levels and reporting relationships. Some are more hierarchical with multiple levels, while others are compressed with fewer levels. The pay differences among levels are referred to as differentials. Work content and its value are the most common basis for determining internal structures. Content refers to the work performed in a job and how it gets done, like tasks, behaviors, knowledge required, and so on. Value refers to the worth of the work, its relative contribution to the organization objectives. A structure based on content typically ranks jobs on skills required, complexity of tasks, problem solving, and responsibility. In contrast, a structure based on the value of the work focuses on the relative contribution of these skills and tasks and responsibilities to the organization's goals. While the resulting structure may be the same, there are important differences. In addition to relative contribution, external market value may also be included, like what competitors pay for the job, or it may include rates agreed upon through collective bargaining or even legislative rates like minimum wage. A job based structure relies on the work content, tasks, behaviors, and responsibilities. A person based structure shifts the focus to the employee, the skills, knowledge, or competencies of the employee, and whether or not they're used in the employee's job. In the real workplace, it's often hard to describe a job without reference to the job holder's knowledge and skills. Conversely, it's hard to define a person's job related knowledge or competencies without referring to work content. So rather than a job or a person based structure, reality includes both. We categorize internal compensation structures as external and organizational factors, even though they are connected and interact. In addition to supply and demand for labor, supply and demand for products and services also affect internal structures. Unpredictable external conditions require pay structures that support agile organizations and flexible people. An internal structure may contain any number of levels with differentials of any size, as long as the criteria for setting them do not discriminate based on gender, race, religion, or national origin. Unions, stockholders, and other groups have a stake in how internal pay structures are determined. Most unions seek smaller pay differences among jobs and seniority based promotions as a way to promote solidarity among members. Human capital, the knowledge, abilities, and skills required to perform the work, is a major influence on internal structures. The greater the value added by the skills and experience, the more pay those skills will command. Technology used in producing goods and services influences the organizational design, the work to be performed, and the skills or knowledge required to perform the work. The organization's other human resource policies also influence internal pay structures. Most organizations tie money to promotions and induce employees to apply for higher level positions. Internal labor markets combined both external and organizational factors. Internal labor markets refer to the rules and procedures that one, determine the pay for the different jobs within a single organization, and two, allocate employees among those different jobs. External factors are dominant influences on pay for entry jobs, but the differences for monetary jobs tend to reflect internal factors. Employees judge the fairness of their pay through comparisons with the compensation paid for others for work related in the same or similar fashion to their own. Pay structures change in response to external factors such as skill shortages. Over time, distorted pay differences may become accepted as equitable or customary. Efforts to change them are resisted. Thus, pay structures established for organization and economic reasons at an earlier time may be maintained for cultural or political reasons. It may take another economic jolt to overcome the resistance. Aligned pay structures support the way the organization does work, fit the business strategy, and are fair to employees. Greater internal alignment or fit is more likely to lead to success. Misaligned structures become obstacles. They may still motivate employee behavior, but it may be undesirable. Two strategic choices are involved in aligning a pay structure. One, how specifically tailored to the organization's design and workflow to make the structure, and two, how to distribute pay throughout the levels in the structure. A low cost, customer focused business strategy, such as that followed by McDonald's or Walmart, may be supported by a closely tailored structure. Jobs are well defined with detailed tasks or steps to follow. Pay structures can range from hierarchical to egalitarian. Egalitarian structures have fewer levels or smaller differentials between adjacent levels and between the highest and lowest paid workers. Structures can also be said to vary from layered to delayered. In the delayered structure, several levels of job titles are removed so that all employees at all levels become responsible for a broader range of tasks, but also have greater freedom to determine how to best accomplish what's expected of them. The delayed structure or delayered structure is more egalitarian in that it sends the message that all employees are valued equally. Employees are less closely supervised and they're given more autonomy in hopes of allowing them to exercise independent thought, initiative, and action. Levels and differentials can range widely and can be based on the job, the person, or some combination of the two. Both economists and psychologists have something to tell us about the effects of various pay structures. Employees judge equity or fairness of their pay by making multiple comparisons. They compare their pay to other jobs in the organization, internal equity, and against the external pay market, external equity. In one survey, external and internal pay comparisons appear to be about equally common, at least in terms of which types of comparisons employees raise with managers. About one quarter to one third of organizations report that employees raise these comparisons frequently. So, explaining to employees on a regular basis the rationale for compensation system choices is necessary. The results from these comparisons depend in part on the accuracy of employee knowledge of other employees' jobs, internal structures, and external pay levels. It's important to be clear that the terms equity and equal are not interchangeable. Outcomes, such as pay, can be unequal across employees, but pay can nevertheless be perceived as equitable and fair. Equity theory says that people compare the ratio of their own outcomes, like pay, status, and enjoyment, to inputs like effort, ability, and performance, with those of others, internal, external, or themselves in past or future situations. Perceived equity results if the ratios are very similar. The ratios can be similar despite differences in pay if performance differences are perceived to exist. Sometimes internal pay structures are adopted because they've been called a best practice. Organizations simply copy or imitate others. Beyond these points, much remains to be studied. There's practically no research on the optimal size of a promotional increase or its effects on behavior, satisfaction, or performance. Nor is much known about whether more frequent promotions with minimal change in the nature of work are better or worse than less frequent promotions with major changes in work. Informal expectations often develop at each workplace. Why worry about internal alignment at all? Research shows that an aligned structure can lead to better organization performance. If the structure does not motivate employees to help achieve the organization's objectives, then it's a candidate for redesign. Internal pay structures imply future returns. The size of the differentials between the entry level in the structure and the highest level can encourage employees to remain with the organization and seek greater responsibility. Researchers have long agreed that departures from an acceptable wage structure will cause turnover, grievances, and diminished motivation. But that's where the agreement ends. One group argues that if fair differentials among jobs are not paid, individuals may harbor ill will towards the employer, resist change, change employment, or lack productivity. Others, including labor unions, argue for small differentials within pay levels and for similar work in the belief that a more egalitarian structure supports cooperation and commitment and improves performance. As with any pay decision, internal pay structures must comply with the regulations of the countries in which the organization operates. While the research on internal alignment is very informative, there's still a lot we don't know.